71 hours and 37 minutes after Ambassador Kwan's ultimatum. War Commander Thaxonal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, overlooking the Kepler system. His 4 arms were crossed in confident satisfaction. As he reviewed reports from his occupation forces, the human work camps were already operational, and his engineers were strip mining the system's asteroids for rare metals. "Any response from the human homeworld?" he asked his communications officer. "Nothing, War Commander. Their diplomatic frequencies remain silent. It appears they have accepted the inevitable." Vexnal's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Of course. They have a Class C species making threats. Signal the Council that the Andromedan Empire considers this matter closed." At that exact moment, every sensor on every Andromedan ship in the system went completely dead. Chief Sensor Operator Kexian frantically worked his controls, trying to restore their electronic eyes and ears. Failure across the entire FL. His words were cut off as the Destroyer of Worlds shuddered under an impact that shouldn't have been possible. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as damage reports flooded in from across the massive vessel. "Impossible," breathed. "Nothing in this system has weapons capable of the second impact nearly threw him from his feet." Through the viewports, he could see explosions blooming across his escort vessels like deadly flowers. Ships that had dominated battlefields for centuries were being torn apart by weapons fire that seemed to come from empty space. "Visual contact," screamed his tactical officer. "Ships decloaking off our starboard bow." What Thaxonal saw defied everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. Sleek vessels, unlike anything in their intelligence files, materialized from nothingness, their hulls crackling with energy that made his teeth ache. The lead ship was easily twice the size of his flagship, and its weapons arrays were already glowing with deadly purpose. "Identify those vessels," he roared. "Unknown configuration, War Commander. They're not in any of our databases. Energy signatures are off the scale." How did they, the communication system, crackled to life, carrying a voice that spoke perfect Andromedan with a distinctly human accent. "War Commander Vexenal, this is Admiral Nam Gyung of the Earth Defense Force. You failed to comply with our ultimatum." Vexenal activated his own communications with desperate fury. "This is impossible. Humans are a Class C species. You don't have this technology." "You're absolutely right," came the calm reply. "We don't have your technology. Ours is better. You have 60 seconds to order the immediate release of all human civilians, or we will demonstrate the difference between our capabilities and yours." "Never." The Andromedan Empire bows to no one. All ships opened fire on the human vessels. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The Andromedan fleet, composed of 37 warships, including 5 dreadnoughts, opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion torpedoes filled the space between the fleets with enough destructive energy to crack a moon. The human ships didn't even bother to dodge. Their shields absorbed the entire barrage without so much as flickering energy patterns rippling across their hulls like water on glass. When the light faded and sensors cleared, every human vessel remained completely undamaged. "Show," commented Admiral Nam. Each Andromedan ship was struck exactly once by weapons that seemed to ignore shields entirely, passing through defensive barriers as if they didn't exist. But instead of destroying the vessels outright, the human weapons disabled them completely. Engines went dead. Weapon systems failed. Life support flickered to emergency power in less than 3 minutes. An entire Andromedan battle fleet had been reduced to helpless hulks drifting in space. "This is Admiral Nam to all Andromedan vessels," came the voice over their communications. "Your ships are disabled, but intact. Your crews are alive, but powerless. You now have a choice. Release our civilians immediately and withdraw from this system, or we will demonstrate what our weapons do when we're not being merciful." War Commander Vexenal stared at his dead control panels in shock. His proud flagship terror of 3 sectors had been rendered as helpless as a child's toy. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore even basic systems, but nothing responded. "How?" he whispered. "You want to know how?" Admiral Nome's voice carried a note of something that might have been pity. "For 37 years, your species and others have dismissed us as peaceful traders. You saw our cargo ships and assumed they were all we had. You observed our diplomatic behavior and mistook restraint for weakness. You cataloged our technology and thought you understood our capabilities. The main viewer flickered to life, showing Admiral Nam on her bridge. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Behind her, human officers worked at control stations that looked like they belonged in a science fiction dream. What you failed to understand, she continued, is that humans don't show our teeth until we're ready to bite. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we joined your galactic community. Every smile was reconnaissance. Every trade agreement was intelligence gathering. Every diplomatic courtesy was us learning exactly how to defeat you. Lieutenant Commander An Sung-ho, aboard the Bizen's Shadow, watched through his sensors as similar scenes played out across 12 other star systems simultaneously. Hidden human fleets had emerged from stealth to neutralize Andromedan forces throughout their empire. Bases that had stood unconquered for centuries were going dark, one by one. Phase 1 complete, he reported to Fleet Command. All Andromedan, military assets and human-adjacent systems have been neutralized, ready for Phase 2 on your command. On Earth, President Yoon Sang-ho stood in the war room watching holographic displays that showed the true scope of Operation Phoenix. Hundreds of human vessels, hidden for decades, had revealed themselves simultaneously across 43 star systems. The galaxy's most feared military empire was being systematically dismantled by a species they had considered beneath notice. Status. Report, he requested. Total success across all theaters, reported General Song Woo-jin. 0 human casualties. Andromedan fleet capacity reduced by 78% in the opening phase. All human civilians in the Kepler system have been safely evacuated. Dr. Park Hyojin looked up from her technical readouts with satisfaction. Our new shielding technology performed flawlessly. It's like they're throwing stones at starships and the other galactic species. Asked President Yoon, Dr. Lim Yuna smiled grimly. Panic. Complete panic. The Galactic Council is in emergency session. Half the member species are demanding answers. The other half are quietly reviewing their own policies toward humanity. Everyone wants to know how we hid this level of military capability for nearly 4 decades. Back in the Kepler system, War Commander Dexonal finally found his voice. What do you want from us? Admiral Nome's expression softened slightly. What we've always wanted, Commander, to be left alone to live in peace. The difference is, now you understand what happens when that peace is threatened. Your choice is simple. Withdraw from all human-claimed systems. Release all human civilians from your territory and never threaten us again. Or we can continue this demonstration until there's nothing left of your empire to threaten anyone. The proud war commander, whose species had never known defeat, slowly reached for his communications. Controls all Andromedan forces, he broadcast on open channels. Implement immediate strategic withdrawal from all disputed territories. Release all human prisoners, effective immediately. By order of War Commander Vexenal. Wise choice, said Admiral Nam. Your ship's systems will be restored once you've cleared human space. Consider this a lesson in the difference between appearing weak and choosing to be peaceful. As the disabled Andromedan fleet began to withdraw under escort from human vessels, news of the engagement spread across galactic communication networks faster than light itself. The quiet species had finally spoken, and their voice had shaken the galaxy to its foundations. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a state of chaos. Unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history, representatives from 47 species crowded into chambers designed to handle diplomatic disputes over trade routes and territorial boundaries, not revelations that could reshape the entire galactic power structure. Chairman Vardith S. tentacles writhed with barely controlled anxiety as he called for order. Around him, counselors spoke in rapid, panicked exchanges in dozens of languages. The Valorian delegate was reviewing security footage that shouldn't have existed. The Zephyrian representative kept muttering calculations about fleet strengths that no longer made sense. The Cretian ambassador appeared to be having some form of nervous breakdown. Order. Chairman Vardith's voice boomed through translation systems. We will have order in these chambers. The chaos gradually subsided, but the underlying tension remained as thick as the atmosphere on a gas giant. Every eye in the room eventually turned to the human delegation, where Ambassador Quan Hai-Yunwoo sat with the same diplomatic calm he had displayed for years. Park So-min beside him was quietly reviewing data on a portable device that suddenly looked far more sophisticated than anyone had previously noticed. Perhaps you could explain to the Council exactly what happened in the Kepler system 17 hours ago. Quan stood with unhurried grace, smoothing his diplomatic robes. In a gesture that had once seemed nervous but now appeared calculated, certainly, Chairman, the Andromedan Empire violated the territorial sovereignty of human colonies and threatened the lives of 2 billion human citizens. The Earth Defense Force responded by neutralizing the threat and securing the release of our people. I believe the standard diplomatic term is proportional response. Councillor Vextar of the Hegemony leaned forward. His usual composure cracked. Proportional. You disabled an entire Andromedan battle fleet without losing a single ship. Your vessels use technology that doesn't exist in our databases. Our technology exists quite well, Counselor, replied Quan mildly. You simply weren't aware of it. There's a difference. But this is impossible. We've observed human capabilities for nearly 4 decades. Park So-min looked up from her device and spoke for the first time in the session. You know exactly what we wanted you to know. The question is, why? Did we want you to believe we were weak? The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Studying us all this time. For 37 years, for months, and 16 days, confirmed Ambassador Quan, every diplomatic exchange, every trade negotiation, every casual conversation between our species and yours has been carefully observed and analyzed. We know how you think, how you fight, how you make decisions. We know your weaknesses, your fears, your strategic doctrines. We know everything. Found his voice through the communication system. This is treachery. Deception of the highest order. The humans have violated every principle of honorable first contact, have we? Asked Ambassador Quan, his tone remaining perfectly diplomatic. I've reviewed our first contact protocols quite thoroughly. There's nothing in galactic law that requires a species to reveal the full extent of their military capabilities upon joining the community. In fact, most species maintain classified defense information as a matter of course. But you pretended to be weak, accused Councillor Murdoch. We never claimed to be weak, corrected Park So-min. We claimed to be peaceful. There's a significant difference. We prefer diplomatic solutions. We engage in mutually beneficial trade. We follow established protocols. All of this remains true. We're exactly as peaceful as we always said we were. Then explain the fleet that just dismantled the... Simple, said Ambassador Quan. We prepare for war so that we can maintain peace. Andromedans possessed advanced weapons made them peaceful. The difference is in how those capabilities are used. Chairman Vardath struggled to regain control of the session. Ambassador Quan, the Council, demands a full disclosure of human military capabilities. We need to reassess the threat level posed by your species. Threat level. Ambassador Quan's eyebrows rose slightly. Chairman, with respect, we've just demonstrated that we could have conquered half the galaxy at any point during the last 3. If we were a threat, would this conversation be taking place? Smiled as she watched alien politicians grapple with concepts they had never encountered. Perfect execution, she murmured to her staff. They're terrified, but they can't justify their terror because we haven't actually threatened them. The psychological warfare was subtle but devastating. Every species in the Council was suddenly re-evaluating every interaction they had ever had with humanity. If humans could hide technology this advanced, what else were they hiding? They could deceive the galaxy's most sophisticated intelligence networks for nearly 4 decades. What other capabilities might they possess? Councillor Yixera raised a trembling appendage. Ambassador, if your species possesses such advanced technology, why did you join our community at all? Why not simply establish your own empire? Because, said Ambassador Quan, his voice carrying genuine warmth for the first time in the session, we believe that diversity makes us all stronger. We learned from your technologies, your cultures, your perspectives. In return, we contributed our own knowledge and capabilities to the common good. The fact that we could have taken what we wanted by force doesn't mean we should have, but the deception began. War Commander that was necessary, interrupted Park Soman, because this galaxy has a disturbing tendency to shoot first and ask questions later when it encounters species it considers threatening. Look at the historical records. How many advanced species have been destroyed or enslaved simply because they were perceived as dangerous? How many civilizations have been wiped out because they couldn't defend themselves? The chamber fell silent again as delegates contemplated the uncomfortable truth in her words. The galaxy's history was indeed filled with species that had been eliminated for being either too weak or too strong. We chose a third path, continued Ambassador Quan. Appear harmless while secretly becoming powerful enough to protect ourselves. It worked perfectly until the Andromedans forced our hand by threatening our civilians. Counselors, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The human species has no interest in conquest, no desire for empire, no intention of imposing our will on others. We've revealed our true capabilities for one reason only: to protect our people. Any species that leaves us alone will find us the same peaceful neighbors we've always been. And if someone doesn't leave you alone, asked Chairman Voggeth quietly. The silence that followed was more eloquent than any threat could have been. In star systems across the galaxy, alien military commanders were reviewing their force deployments and wondering if the humans had ships watching them too. Intelligence agencies were frantically trying to identify which human civilians might actually be operatives. Politicians were reconsidering every policy decision involving human interests. I believe, said Ambassador Quan finally, that would be a very poor decision for any species to make. As the session continued with increasingly nervous questions and carefully diplomatic answers, one thing became clear to every observer. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted irrevocably. The quiet species had finally spoken, and their voice would echo through space for generations to come. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called after the Andromedans announced their latest conquest. They had annexed the Kepler system, home to 2 billion Terran civilians who had been living there peacefully for 15 years. Announcement was delivered with typical Andromedan arrogance by War Commander Thexanol, whose species had dominated 3 sectors through superior firepower and brutal efficiency. The Kepler colonies have been absorbed into the Andromedan Empire, he declared, his forearms spread in a gesture of dominance. The human settlers will be relocated to work camps where they can contribute meaningfully to galactic progress. Ambassador Quan Haiyan Wu sat perfectly still as the words washed over the chamber. Around him, other species nodded in acceptance or looked away uncomfortably. This was how things worked in galactic politics. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak accepted it. The humans are a peaceful species, added Counselor Yixara of the Scientific Coalition. I'm sure they understand this is simply the natural order. Perhaps we can arrange some compensation for their inconvenience. The chamber filled with polite murmurs of agreement. Several counselors glanced at the human delegation, expecting the usual quiet acceptance they had come to rely on. Some even looked sympathetic, as if dealing with a child who had lost a toy. Park Soman, sitting beside Ambassador Quan, watched her superior's face carefully. She had worked with him for 6 years and had never seen him look quite like this. His expression remained perfectly diplomatic, but something had changed behind his eyes. Something cold and calculating that reminded her of winter storms back home in Gangwon province. Ambassador Quan called Council Chairman Vargheth. Does the human delegation have any response to this development? Quan stood slowly, smoothing down his diplomatic robes. When he spoke, his voice carried its usual calm, measured tone. The human government appreciates the Council's concern for our citizens' welfare. We would like to request a brief recess to consult with our homeworld about appropriate responses to this situation. Of course, nodded the chairman. Take all the time you need. We understand this must be difficult for a peaceful species to process. As the council recessed, Ambassador Quan walked calmly to his private communication chamber. His fingers moved across encrypted controls with practiced precision, sending a message that would change everything. The message contained only 3 words: activate Phoenix Protocol. On Earth, President Yoon Sang-ho received the message in his crisis room, surrounded by the planet's top military and intelligence leadership. Admiral Nam Gyung stood before a massive holographic display showing fleet positions throughout human space. General Song Woo-jin reviewed readiness reports from hidden bases scattered across 50 systems. Dr. Park Hyo-jin presented final test results for weapon systems the galaxy had never seen. "Are we certain about this path?" asked President Yoon. "Once we cross this line, there's no going back to being the quiet species." "They took 2 billion of our people," replied General Song grimly. "They're talking about work camps. Our intelligence suggests those camps have a 90% mortality rate within the first year." Dr. Lim Yuna activated a holographic display showing psychological profiles of every major galactic species. "We've run the projections thousands of times. They see our restraint as weakness, our diplomacy as fear. They'll keep pushing until there's nothing left of humanity to push. Then it's time they learned what human restraint actually looks like," said President Yoon. "Activate all protocols. Send the recall signal to every human citizen in galactic space. Begin Phase 3 of the contingency plan." Across the galaxy, the signal went out on frequencies only humans could detect. On trading stations, cargo haulers, and colony worlds, human civilians received the same message. "Come home. The storm is coming." Captain Lee Tae-hyun aboard the Seoul's Pride changed course immediately upon receiving his new orders. His peaceful exploration mission was over. Now he commanded the first ship of humanity's Shadow Fleet, heading to coordinates where dozens of similar vessels were converging. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers and civilian transports began shedding their fake hulls, revealing sleek warships bristling with weapons technology that made Andromedan vessels look like ancient relics. Lieutenant Commander on Sung-ho, still observing Valorian patrols from his stealth ship, smiled grimly as new orders appeared on his screen. The Bizan's Shadow was no longer an intelligence vessel. It was now the tip of humanity's spear, tasked with eliminating key military targets before the enemy even realized they were under attack. Back in the council chambers, Ambassador Kwan returned from his recess with the same diplomatic smile he had worn for years. "The human government has reached a decision regarding the Andromedan actions in the Kepler system." "Excellent," said Chairman Vardeth. "I trust your people will accept this development with their usual grace." "Oh, we will." "Respond with typical human behavior," replied Kwan, his smile never wavering. "Though I should mention that my government has asked me to deliver a formal statement to the Andromedan delegation." War Commander Thexonal leaned forward in his chair, all 4 arms crossed in amusement. "The humans wish to make a statement." "How entertaining. Please proceed." Ambassador Kwan's smile finally faded. When he spoke again, his voice carried a new quality that made several counselors shift uncomfortably in their seats. "The human government wishes to inform the Andromedan Empire that they have 72 hours to release all human civilians from the Kepler system and withdraw their forces completely. Failure to comply will result in consequences." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and several species equivalent of laughter. War Commander Thexonol's amusement was particularly loud. "Consequences!" he bellowed. "What consequences could a Class C species possibly threaten us with? Your entire fleet consists of cargo ships and survey vessels." Ambassador Kwan looked directly at the Andromedan commander, and for the first time in 37 years of diplomatic contact, let his true feelings show. "That's what we wanted you to think." The big meeting room was full of noise as aliens from 47 different worlds sat in their chairs, talking to each other. Ambassador Kwan, Hyun Woo from Earth, sat in a tiny corner with only 3 chairs for humans. His helper Park, So Min, whispered to him about trade deals, while the bigger alien species talked about important galaxy stuff. Humans had been part of this big space club for 37 years now. Ever since the blue-skinned Valorians found Earth and said hello, the aliens put humans in the weak group called Class C species. They thought humans were just peaceful traders with okay technology but nothing special. The council liked that humans were quiet and always said yes to everything. Counselor Vextar from the Hegemony species told his friend the humans never talk much in meetings. They just nod their heads and agree with what we decide. It's so nice compared to those loud Cretian aliens who always argue about everything, but the aliens did not know the real truth. Earth's government had been watching and learning about every alien species, every piece of technology, every weak spot. Captain Lee Tehon was flying around space in his ship called Soul Pride, pretending to explore new places for science. But really, he was spying. His crew had smart people like Dr. Choi Min-ji, who studied alien bodies to learn how to hurt them, and Engineer Kim Du-won, who took apart alien machines to copy them. The humans always smiled when they met aliens. They traded things peacefully and asked nice questions about galaxy history. They learned about the big wars, the dead species, the scary weapons that were not allowed. They soaked up every bit of information like sponges and sent it all back to secret computers. On Earth, when the tall gray Zephyrian alien announced that his people were taking over mining rights in the Outer Rim, which meant they were grabbing 3 star systems. Right next to human space ambassador, Quan just nodded and said thank you for telling us. The other aliens looked happy. Such good humans, they thought, always so reasonable. But that same night in his private room, Ambassador Quan sent a secret message to Earth. The message was short: they are moving into our expansion areas phase. 2 protocols might be needed. Soon on Earth, President Yoon Sang-ho read the message in his hidden bunker deep under Seoul City. Around him, glowing screens showed the real truth about what humans had been building. Hidden ship factories in the asteroid belt, where Admiral Nam Ji-young was making warships that looked nothing like the peaceful cargo ships the aliens had seen. Secret research labs on Mars, where scientist Dr. Park Hyo-jin was working on weapons that would make the advanced alien races look like babies playing with toys. General Song Woo-jin, who was in charge of Earth's military, asked, "How long before they figure out what we are really doing?" Dr. Lim Yu-na, who was the boss of psychological warfare, said, "They will never figure it out. We have studied how they think for decades. They think we are harmless because we act harmless. They have never met a species that knows how to lie and plan for the long term like we do." The real truth was that humans had been getting ready for war since the very first day they met aliens, not because they wanted to fight, but because they understood something the galaxies seemed to have forgotten. In a universe full of dangerous predators, the quiet ones were not always the weak ones. Sometimes they were just the patient ones waiting for the right moment. Lieutenant Commander An Sung-ho stood on the control deck of humanity's most advanced invisible ship called Busan Shadow. He was watching Valorian patrol ships through special sensors that the aliens could not detect. His job was simple: watch, record everything, and stay hidden. For 3 whole years he had been mapping every major alien species, military power, where their fleets were, and how they liked to fight. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin, told him their battle formations have not changed in 50 years. They do exactly the same thing every time. We could beat them with our eyes closed. Back on Earth, children went to schools where they learned not just math and reading, but also how alien bodies worked, alien languages, and how to think. Like military strategists, every human citizen was secretly a spy, trained from when they were babies to watch, remember, and report back. They called it civic preparedness. And the aliens thought it was wonderful how seriously humans took education. The council meeting ended like it always did. The humans said thank you to everyone, promised to follow all the new rules, and walked out quietly as they left. Counselor Murdoch from the Trade Federation said to his assistant, "What a nice change from all the aggressive new species we usually deal with. The humans know their place in the galaxy order." If only he knew that every human diplomat, trader, and tourist was actually a secret agent, that every peaceful colony ship had enough hidden weapons to blow up a moon, and that the quiet species he thought so little of had been preparing for this exact moment. For more than 30 years, Lieutenant Commander An had been tracking alien ship movements for months. His invisible ship could go anywhere without being seen. He watched as Andromedan war fleets practiced their attacks. He recorded how Valorian scouts moved through space. He counted every weapon, every shield, every weak point. The aliens had the Andromedans, were the scariest aliens in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved billions of people. Their ships were huge and covered in weapons. Their soldiers were brutal and showed no mercy, but even they had patterns, even they had weaknesses that human spies had been cataloging for years. Dr. Park Hyo-jin worked in secret labs that were hidden so well that not even other humans knew where they were. She had been reverse engineering alien technology for decades, taking their best weapons and making them better. Human scientists had improved on every piece of alien tech they had ever seen. The plasma cannons that Valorians were so proud of humans had built Better ones 5 years ago, the energy shields that protected Andromedon Dreadnought's human shields were 10 times stronger. The faster-than-light engines that let aliens travel between stars' human engines could go twice as fast, but the biggest advantage humans had was not their technology, it was their patience. While alien species fought each other and showed off their power, humans sat quietly in the corner and learned. They learned how each species thought, how they made decisions, what scared them, what made them angry. Dr. Limuna had files on every major alien leader. She knew that Valorian commanders always attacked from the right. She knew that Andromedon warriors got angry when their honor was questioned. She knew that Zephyrian politicians cared more about looking important than actually winning battles. All of this information flowed back to Earth through secret channels that aliens could not detect. Human traders carried hidden communication devices. Human diplomats had memory implants that recorded everything they saw. Human tourists were actually intelligence officers mapping alien defenses. The aliens thought they were so smart, they thought they understood humans. They had watched human ships and counted human weapons. They had analyzed human technology and decided humans were not a threat. They were completely wrong. Every cargo ship that left Earth had hidden compartments full of weapons. Every peaceful colony had underground bunkers full of supplies. Every human civilian knew exactly what to do if war ever started. The entire species had been preparing for decades. Admiral Nam-Ji Young stood in her secret command center looking at displays that showed the true size of humanity's hidden fleet. Thousands of warships built in secret locations throughout the solar system. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroid fields, stealth ships that could appear anywhere without warning. The aliens had never seen any of it. The humans had learned the most important lesson of galaxy politics. Everyone underestimates the species that does not make noise. They had spent 37 years being underestimated, and they were about to show the galaxy just how dangerous that mistake could be. Meeting rooms across alien space, military commanders looked at reports about human capabilities and dismissed them as unimportant. Intelligence officers filed away information about human activities as routine politicians made decisions about human territory. Without considering what humans might think about it, they were all about to learn that the quiet species in the corner had been listening to every word. 3 months after what historians would later call the Kepler incident, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. In conference rooms across dozens of worlds, military strategists stared at holographic displays showing updated threat assessments that no longer made sense. Species that had dominated their neighbors for centuries were quietly reviewing their expansion policies. Empires built on military superiority were discovering the uncomfortable feeling of vulnerability. Captain Lee Taeheon stood on the observation deck of the Soul's Pride, no longer disguised as a simple exploration vessel. The ship now openly displayed its true configuration, bristling with weapons arrays and sensor systems that made alien vessels look primitive by comparison. Through the viewports, he could see the construction of humanity's first official military starbase in the Proxima sector. "It's strange," commented his first officer, Commander Choi Ming-gi, as she joined him at the viewport. "For decades we hid what we were capable of. Now everyone knows, and somehow the galaxy feels more peaceful than it has in years." She was right. The great military powers were talking instead of fighting. Trade disputes were being resolved through negotiation rather than force. Species that had been on the brink of war were suddenly finding diplomatic solutions to their problems. Nobody wanted to risk triggering another demonstration of human capabilities. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Nam-gyung reviewed reports from human fleets stationed throughout the galaxy. What they had revealed was impressive, but it was still only a fraction of humanity's true military might. The real fleets remained hidden, just as they always had. The galaxy had seen enough to respect humanity's strength, but not enough to understand its full scope. Status report from the Outer Territories requested Admiral Nom. "All quiet," replied her communications officer, Lieutenant Bae Sujin. "The Andromedan Empire has withdrawn completely from disputed sectors. They've even started paying reparations. For the human civilians they displaced, the Zephyrian hegemony requested permission before expanding into the Vega system, despite us having no official claim there." "They're being polite," observed Admiral Nam with amusement. "How refreshing." The Galactic Council had undergone significant changes as well. Ambassador Kwan Hyanwu now sat in the front row of the council chambers, no longer relegated to the corner reserved for minor species. His aide, Park Soman, had been revealed as Dr. Park Soman, Director of Humanity's Xenopsychology program and one of the galaxy's leading experts on interspecies relations. The Council recognizes Ambassador Kwan of the Terran Federation, announced Chairman Vardeth, using humanity's new official designation. The change from human colonies to Terran Federation had been subtle but significant, acknowledging Earth's status as a major galactic power. "Thank you, Chairman," replied Kwan as he stood. "The Terran Federation wishes to propose a new interspecies cooperation initiative. We're prepared to share certain technological advances with Council members, particularly in the areas of medical technology and environmental restoration." The offer sent ripples of excitement through the chamber. Human medical technology had always been impressive, but their recent revelations suggested they might have capabilities that could revolutionize galactic healthcare. Environmental restoration technology could reverse centuries of damage on dozens of worlds. "What does the Terran Federation request in return?" asked Councillor Vextar, his tone much more respectful than it had been 3 months earlier. "Simple cooperation in maintaining galactic stability," replied Ambassador Kwan. "We're not interested in tribute or subjugation. We want the same thing. We've always wanted peaceful coexistence and mutual prosperity." Dr. Lim Yuna watched the proceedings from Earth, analyzing the psychological responses of each species' representatives. The shock of humanity's revelation had given way to a careful reassessment of galactic politics. Species were choosing their actions more carefully now, knowing that the quiet observers might not be as powerless as they appeared. "Phase 4 is proceeding perfectly," she reported to President Yoon Sang-ho. "Fear has evolved into respect. Respect is becoming cooperation. The psychological adjustment period is nearly complete, and our actual security status," asked the President. General Song Woo-jin activated a holographic display showing fleet positions throughout human space. "Better than ever. The shadow fleets remain undetected, our defensive systems are fully operational, and potential threats are maintaining respectful distances. The galaxy is more stable than it's been in centuries." On the edge of Andromedan space, War Commander Thaxonal stood in his rebuilt command center, studying tactical displays that no longer showed expansion opportunities. His empire's aggressive expansion had been permanently halted, not by military defeat but by the simple knowledge that further aggression would result in annihilation. War Commander reported his intelligence officer, "We've completed our analysis of human capabilities based on the Kepler engagement." "Conclusions?" asked Thexanal, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Conservative estimates suggest the human fleet we encountered represents less than 10% of their actual military capacity. Their industrial capability appears to exceed the combined output of the top 5 galactic powers. Their technology base is at least 50 years ahead of our most advanced systems." Vexno S4 arms dropped to his sides in defeat. 50 years, possibly more. Our analysis is limited by the fact that they were clearly holding back during the engagement. We have no data on their maximum capabilities. The War Commander stared at the tactical display showing his reduced fleet. For the first time in his military career, he was grateful for an enemy's mercy. If the humans had chosen destruction over demonstration, the Andromedan Empire would no longer exist. "New standing orders," he announced. "All Andromedan forces are to avoid conflict with human vessels or interests. Any commander who engages human forces without direct authorization will be We are not at war with the Terran Federation, and we will do nothing to change that status." Similar conversations were taking place in command centers across the galaxy. The Valorian Confederacy had quietly canceled plans to claim systems near human space. The Cretian Republic was reviewing centuries of aggressive foreign policy. Even the Zephyrian hegemony, the galaxy's oldest continuous empire, was reconsidering its approach to interspecies relations. Lieutenant Commander On Sun-ho, still commanding his stealth vessel, monitored these changes with professional satisfaction. The Bizon's Shadow and ships like it continued their invisible patrols, but their mission had evolved. Instead of preparing for war, they now worked to prevent it by providing early warning of potential conflicts. "It's working exactly as planned," he reported to Fleet Command. "The psychological impact is achieving better results than any military campaign could have. Everyone's too busy being polite to start wars. Back on Earth, in the cities and towns where humanity's secret had been carefully guarded for decades, life continued, much as it always had. Children still attended schools, workers still went to their jobs, families still gathered for meals. The only difference was a subtle sense of pride that their quiet strength had finally been acknowledged. Dr. Park Hyojin stood in her laboratory surrounded by technologies that could reshape civilization. Technologies that remained hidden even after humanity's partial revelation. The galaxy had seen enough to respect their power, but the full extent of human advancement remained humanity's ultimate secret. The new equilibrium is stable. The battle lasted exactly 43 minutes, but those 43 minutes changed everything in the galaxy forever. Admiral Choi Jae-sung watched from the bridge of his flagship as human. Ships moved like deadly dancers through space. Their formation was something no alien species had ever seen before, ships working together like parts of one giant machine. Each pilot knowing exactly where their friends were and what they needed to do. The hegemony fleet had thought they were fighting 300 scared colonists. Instead, they found themselves facing the combined might of human civilization. Ships appeared from quantum jumps in perfect timing. Some came from above, some from below, some from the sides. The alien commanders had no idea how to fight an enemy that could appear anywhere at any time. Fleet Admiral Zex Thul screamed orders at his captains, but his voice was full of fear now. The human ships were bigger than anything in their files. These were not the small defensive vessels they had seen protecting human colonies. These were warships built in secret. Shipyards hidden throughout human space, each one bristling with weapons that looked like they had been torn from mining equipment and rebuilt for war communications. Officer Lim Yoon-mi reported from her station, "Sir, the humans from New Incheon have arrived there. Admiral Park Kyung-ho is requesting permission to lead the first attack wave. He says his people want revenge for their frozen assets." Admiral Choi nodded. "Give him permission. Tell all fleet commanders they are free to engage at will. Show them what happens when you hurt human families." The first wave of human ships dove toward the hegemony fleet like angry hornets. Their weapons were unlike anything that aliens had seen before. Mining lasers that could cut through asteroid rocks sliced through alien shields like they were made of paper. Industrial plasma cutters designed to melt metal turned enemy armor into glowing slag in seconds. What terrified the hegemony forces most was how the humans fought. They did not try to disable enemy ships. They did not aim for weapons or engines. They went straight for the bridge sections and life support systems. They fought like they wanted every alien on those ships to die, and they did not care if they died doing it. Captain Nam Subin led a squadron of converted mining ships straight into the center of the enemy formation. Her ship took heavy damage, but she kept firing until her weapons overloaded. Then she rammed her ship into the side of a hegemony cruiser. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the space around Kepler for 4-2 bestir. "We are receiving surrender requests from 12 hegemony vessels," reported Lim Yoon-mi. Her voice was shaking as she watched the battle. Admiral Choi looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was falling apart. Some ships were trying to run. Others were spinning out of control with their bridge sections destroyed. A few were still fighting, but they looked lost and confused. Admiral Choi opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "This is Admiral Choi to all human ships. The hegemony has requested surrender terms. Here are our terms. Every alien ship will power down weapons and surrender. Unconditionally, any ship that tries to run will be destroyed. Any ship that keeps fighting will be destroyed. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to teach a lesson." Response from the human fleet was immediate. Every captain acknowledged the order. Some sounded eager to keep fighting. Others sounded satisfied that justice was being done, but all of them sounded united in a way that made Admiral Choi proud to be human fleet. Admiral Zex Thul appeared on the communication screen. His 4 arms were shaking, and his face was pale with fear. "Admiral Choi, you have won this battle, but the Galactic Council will not stand for this aggression. You are attacking the lawful forces of 5 different species. This means war with the entire galaxy." Choi smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Fleet Admiral, you seem to think we care about your threats. You attacked our civilians. You destroyed our colony. You murdered our families. The Galactic Council can declare war on humanity if they want. But they should ask themselves one question. Are they ready for what happens when 3 billion humans decide to stop playing nice? More human fleets kept arriving through quantum jumps, ships from Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies New Sol, New Busan, New Incheon. Every human world was sending their military forces to this one system. The mining colony that was supposed to be easy prey was now the center of the largest human fleet in history. Yoon Hae-jin contacted the flagship. From one of the rescue ships, Admiral, we are finding survivors in the ruins of New Sol colony. Captain Kim Dae-ho is still alive. He is badly wounded, but he is asking about his crew. Admiral Choi felt something tight in his chest. Release, tell the captain that his message reached every human in the galaxy. Tell him that his stand here saved human civilization. Tell him that no human will ever bow to alien masters again because of what he and his people did. They rescue operations continued for hours. Human ships searched through every piece of debris looking for survivors. The aliens who had attacked the colony watched in confusion as the same humans who had just destroyed their fleet worked frantically to save lives. It was a contradiction. They could not understand how could the same species be so violent in war and so gentle in peace. Meanwhile, the broken hegemony fleet sat under guard waiting for orders about what to do with them. Some human captains wanted to destroy them all as a lesson to the galaxy. Others thought it would be better to send them home to spread the word about human military power. Admiral Choi made the decision himself. Open a channel to all remaining hegemony ships, he ordered. This is Admiral Choi Jae Sung of the Human Defense Force. You came here to steal from us. You came here to murder our families. You came here because you thought humans were weak and afraid. You were wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. You will be allowed to return to your home worlds. You will tell your leaders exactly what happened here. You will tell them that humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist in this galaxy. We are taking our place as equals if any species wants to challenge that decision. They are welcome to thrive. The surviving alien ships began to leave the system one by one. Their quantum drives flickered as they jumped away. Carrying news that would spread through the galaxy faster than any human message, some fled toward the core worlds where the Galactic Council met others. Headed for the far rim territories where pirate fleets and independent systems might offer protection from human revenge. As the last alien ship disappeared, Admiral Choi looked around the bridge at his crew. They had just won the most important battle in human history. But nobody was celebrating. They were thinking about the 300 families who had died to make this victory possible. Sir, President Lee Hae-won wants to speak with Youth President appeared on screen, her face serious but proud. Admiral Choi, the entire world has been watching the battle. You and your fleet have done something amazing today, but now comes the hard part. Are we ready for what happens next? Admiral Choi nodded. Madam President, humanity has been preparing for this day since we first left Earth. We have shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, military bases in systems the aliens have never heard of. We have been building quietly for 50 years, waiting for the day when we would need to defend ourselves. That day is today. The President smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Then, give the order, Admiral. It is time for humanity to take its rightful place in the galaxy. Admiral Choi turned to his communications officer. Send the message to every human world. Operation Rising Dawn is now active. All hidden fleets are to reveal themselves. All secret bases are to go to full operational status. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity has not been sleeping for the past 50 years. We have been preparing us. The orders went out. Quantum signatures began appearing throughout human space. Massive shipyards that had been hidden behind asteroid fields suddenly came online. Secret naval bases that had been disguised as mining operations began launching fleets of warships. The galaxy had thought humanity controlled maybe 100 ships spread across dozens of worlds. The truth was that humans had been building a military force of over 2,000 vessels hidden in systems that did not appear on any galactic map. In the ruins of New Sol colony, a small ceremony was held. Captain Kim Dae-ho, weak but alive, stood with the other survivors as Admiral Choi placed a simple monument among the wreckage. The inscription read, "They chose to stand so humanity could rise." The galaxy would never be the same again. The species that had treated humans like junior partners for 50 years were about to discover that their former servants had become their equals, and if they chose to fight that reality, they would learn why humanity had survived as the apex predators of Earth. From this day forward, no human would ever again beg for scraps. At the galactic table, they would take their seat as equals, or they would build their own table. The age of human subservience was over. The age of human strength had begun.